You're either pro-Ukraine or pro-Russia. There's no middle ground. At least that's what it feels like. Now, for a group of people in the war zone, it's black and white. I got it. But for the rest of us, not having to try to stay alive day to day on a battlefield, this conflict makes me really nervous because I don't see a clear way for it to end that doesn't bring with it a bunch of additional risks. You could have a whole debate about what winning actually looks like for each side, but for the sake of argument here, we'll say that Ukraine winning is pushing Russia back to the pre-2014 borders, essentially retaking all of their lost territory. What Russian victory would mean is a little harder to nail down right now, but we'll say it's some mix of annexing territory in the east and south of Ukraine, the demilitarization of Ukraine, and potentially regime change in Kiev. Let's start with the possibility that Russia wins. I know Ukraine is not a part of NATO, but NATO is effectively fighting a proxy war at this point. So if Russia is able to achieve all of their objectives, does that question the effectiveness of the organization? Maybe shift the balance of power in Europe? In the more near term, is Ukraine enough and Russia would stop there? Or would they continue expansion in different directions? And how does effectively the failure of the West to stop Russia play out around the world? For instance, would China view that as maybe an opening to make a move on Taiwan? Now let's say Ukraine is able to defeat Russia militarily and win the war. Historically, global powers have not exited the world stage quietly. They go out with a bang. That's not to say that nuclear weapons would definitely be used, but do you really see Russia quietly retreating back to Moscow? Or doubling down, lashing out, doing anything they can to hold on to power? There are, of course, a ton of options between those two kind of absolute victories, which would probably involve some sort of negotiated peace. But these two countries are at each other's throats. Do you really think a ceasefire would last for long? I don't have some sort of perfect solution here. My big takeaway actually isn't very helpful to anything. Whether it's 2014 or 2022, I just kind of wish this war had never started.